Hi friends, it's Matt from United Methodist Communications. I would like to do a quick walkthrough on a few major concepts to be able to get started with UMConnect. What we'll try to cover are the messages, contacts, flows, and channels, and you can see those all kind of listed up here. If you watched the webinar previously, you probably saw the flows area, and that's where the logic and the main application information comes in. And so if you're going to send a message out to somebody and expect a response back, you build that in a flow. So just a quick refresher, we can create a flow. We'll call this favorite color. And again, this is just an example, and we're just going to make it fairly easy and simple. And we're going to add in this global keyword trigger called color. And what this does is once you have a number set up, which we'll get to shortly on how to do that. Once you get a number set up, you can have a flow that begins if somebody sends a keyword to that number. And so in this case, if somebody sent a message that just said color to a number that we have that's running this flow, then that flow will be triggered. If they send another word, nothing would happen, right? So you could have multiple flows that get triggered based off of different keywords. So that's what that means. Similarly, it would be like some of the other text message services that you may have seen or used whenever they ask you to text a specific word to maybe a short code or a phone number. So we'll click create. And you'll see we've got to create message to get started. So let's go ahead and do that. This will be our first message. What is your favorite color? That'll be the first message. You can move this around to whatever makes you feel most comfortable. And then again, I want to emphasize there are two real key areas to look at whenever you're building these. You see a little plus here, which we'll get to soon, and then you'll see this red dot and the line. The line is only there to help you get started, but the red dot, you just click and you drag, and then you let go, and then this is the response area. And so since we asked a question, we're going to expect a response. Right now, if I just said, so we'll just leave that and say favorite color, click OK. So what's going to happen now is if we go and run this, it'll just ask what the favorite color is, and then it'll respond. Somebody would respond back, and any response it'll just accept. And that can be nice, and it's an open text field. So it can be helpful if you're wanting to have all the options available for people. What the challenge comes is if you're trying to build lists of people and people spell things a little bit differently, they might have typos, they might have they might pick some very interesting names, instead of saying orange, using tangerine as a color. And in their eyes, those are two separate colors, but in your eyes, maybe it's not. So there can be some challenges there. So there's a time for both whenever you just want to allow them to respond with anything, or there's a time to allow them to be able to select something that's predetermined. And so to do that, I'm just going to click back on, and that's how you edit. You just click back onto the box, and it opens back up the same thing that we were just in. And we'll just say red, yellow, blue, green. Okay. And now you'll notice we'll get a bunch of little red dots. And so that means we can drag and drop and add more logic to that. And so now if someone said their favorite color was red, we can respond with, you responded with red, just as an example to make sure that everything's working okay. And so I can click OK. And if we want to test this out, we can go over here. This is a really important feature, and it's the simulator. And what that does is just simulates what would happen in real time before you have a number connected to it. And so what's your favorite color? I can type in red, and you'll see we get the correct response. You responded with red. So if you hit the button here, it'll refresh. And just to make sure that I'm not cheating, we can respond with something different. And we'll say yellow, and nothing happens. It says it sets the result to yellow, but we didn't tell it to send a message to confirm. So so it's not going to do anything other than set the result to yellow. So we can go ahead and add in some basic logic here. You responded with yellow. And then we have the blue. Green. All right. So now if you respond with yellow, what will happen? And you get the right message here. So one thing to note is that you see this little 1 here. That means that there's one person that has gotten the message and is waiting for a response, and then one person that selected yellow. And so this will actually update in real time if you're actually using this, and whenever you're using it in practice, you'll see, all the people will be listed here as going down this path, since that's the only option. And then you'll start to see how many people selected red, how many people selected yellow, blue, green, and that updates in real time, which is really neat. And another thing to be on the lookout for is, so I just refreshed the simulator, and the 1 here means that that's how many people are waiting for the actively in this space. So it's not the path that they went down, it's the box that they're at now. And so that's what that means. So what happens if we say purple? It just sets a result to purple, but nothing else happened. Well, what if we only want the options to be red, yellow, blue, or green? We would actually use this other box to say, if you respond with anything else, that's not going to work out. So I'll just say, please respond with either red, yellow, blue, or green. So now if we refresh and we say purple, we get back that message. So now what if I just type in red? What's going to happen? Nothing. Nothing's going to happen because we need to draw another line back to where we're waiting for this response. Because right now, so once we get here, it just stops. There's nothing, there's no other directions that it has. And so what we want to do is we want to send it back to say, wait for a correct answer. So wait for red, yellow, blue, green. And how we do that is we just drag from the red, but we just drag it back on this box. And so now if we restart and I say purple, and now I can respond with blue and it works. And so you'll see now that, you know, you can watch the path kind of as I went down on this one. You'll see other, and then it has a 1 here. So it came back here. One person came back here and one came here. So that's where we're at right now. And again, ideally, I would like to organize this, maybe spread things out a little bit more. It's typically a nicer way to work, is to try to have some vertical space, depending on how many choices you have. So hopefully all that made sense. And now I want to be able to show you an exercise how we actually would maybe create a group of like-minded friends that all enjoy the color red or yellow or blue or green individually. And so how we would do that is I would utilize groups. There are a few different things that you can do, but I would make groups for these contacts that and these contacts would be added to those specific groups. So let me to add a group. So again, we're not going to be waiting for a response, but we want to do something else. We want to do another action here. And so, and that's what we'll refer to these as. If it has these blue, like the blue send message up here, that's like the lighter blue. That's an action of sending a message, and then we can click here and then see there are a bunch of options whenever you click the down button. And so you can see a bunch, and there's so many that's really helpful, and I'll just name off a few, and a lot of them are self-explanatory, but so we can say send somebody else a message. So we could so that would mean if my colleague Fred really was wanting to be the leader of the group of people that like the color red, you could send him a message automatically, a text message, saying that somebody had signed up, and it hits his phone in near real time, and he'll get that notification. That can be pretty useful. The add contact to group, which is what we're going to do, and the remove contact from group. So if somebody wants to leave that group or change to a different group, and you can only be in one group at a time, those are some of the tools there. Update a contact. So there's different fields that you can put in, similar to a database. It is a sort of database, I suppose. And so you can update that contact. You can update the contact's name. So if you ask them for the name, you can click update the contact and then see what, which piece that you want to add in there. So that's a possibility. Sending an email, that's also really nice. Yeah, all of those things are available. But what we're just going to do quickly is add to a group, and these are the existing groups, and they'll come pre-made, and they're just for examples. But we'll do a red group, and you'll see that they're kind of stacked on top of each other. That means you're doing two actions sequentially without having to, you don't have to wait for another response or anything like that. That's what that means. And so we'll do the same for yellow. Oops. Oh, I said remove. I didn't mean remove. Here's add yellow group. Blue group. Oh, wow, I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay. So now if we restarted and we said yellow, you'll see on the simulator that it says set the result favorite color to yellow, and we got you responded with yellow message, and then it says added to yellow group. And so what that's going to do is, and this is we say the word persistent. So if somebody has a response and you add them to a group, even if you remove this flow, they'll still stay in that group until you delete the group or manually adjust things. But that's a good thing. That's something that is typically a good thing and something that you would want. And just to quickly go over what that looks like is we'll go over into contacts, and you'll see all those groups, they just came up here. And once those contacts are there, you can click in to the blue group and the green group and see who falls in that, and again directly reference that, and maybe reach out to them again at a later time, or put them in another flow, or use it to help organize a database on your own. There's a lot of different options here. And so we can go back into flows, and we go back into our favorite colors app here. And the thing that if we decided to deploy this, as I'd mentioned before, we have that option with triggers, and if you need to change the trigger, you can just go to the trigger section, and you can see whenever we first created a flow, when it asked us that question, it's just a shortcut to instead of having to go to this tab. And so you can go in and remove these if you choose. You can come in and click the word and edit them if you need to. And there are a few other options there that may be helpful at some point, but out of the scope of this original intro. So again, that's the basics of the flows. We've got we kind of got the sending a message. We've got waiting for a response, and we have how to create groups and add people to groups. And we also have how to deal with people that have responded with other. One of the things I will say that I like to do is I like to group people that maybe typed in something other than what I expected, just to be able to, sometimes it depends on the situation, but I like to have those folks tracked in some way. And sometimes I'll make a group to say, I'll make a new group that would be like, different original color. Okay. And that way you'll know what's going on. So the interesting thing to be clear about it is that, if I go in and type in purple, I get added to the different original color group. But then if I add yellow, then I also get added to the yellow group. So I would actually be in 2 groups in this case, which is what I would want in some circumstances. And the other option that you can do is you can just remove and you can remove people from groups as well. And so if you wanted to remove them from the original color group, you can click in, and an easy way to do it would just be to say remove the contact from group, and we'll say different original color group. Okay. And you'll say, Matt, what if it tries to remove someone from the different original color group that was never in the original color group, the different original color group? That's totally fine. There won't be an error. Everything will still work as planned. It'll just look at that group and, well, there's no one in there, so everything's fine. That's the default behavior. So, and again, this is just a quick little example, but I just wanted to make sure that we had some of the basics around flows figured out. You can go in and actually look at some of these other flows to see a few different options and ways things work. This one has a yellow note, so this is something that you can go in and double click somewhere on the screen outside of one of these bubbles here, and you can just type in and basically explain what you're doing. If there's a step that may seem confusing and you're working collaboratively, that's super helpful. And sometimes it's just nice to help you keep yourself organized. And you'll see also you'll see the @ signs. This is a way to be able to reference other, we'll say variables. And the nice thing about this system is if you go in to reference the variables, it'll kind of, as soon as I type the @ sign, it'll help you fill it out a little bit. So if you're wanting to reference someone's name, like in this instance, you would say contact, and then you would type in dot, and then it'll come up with the different options here. And you could go to first name in this situation. If you don't have the names, for example, if you're using the triggers, you may not have their names unless you ask them for it and you updated their contact to include their name. That you need to keep those things in mind, like on what data you actually have on that person before you go and use it. Oh yeah, and another thing that might be helpful is you'll see whenever I put @ you'll see a few different options here. You'll see a results. That's a pretty important one. And so whenever we go back into, let's go back into our colors flow. Sorry for jumping around, but we're going to go back into our colors flow, and what we can do is we can say if we wanted to reference what someone's favorite color was later in the flow for some reason, you could go in and again this go back and well, let's see. Sorry that I dragged, and I should have used the blue to send a message. That's what I meant to do. So again, just remember, sometimes if you do get a little confused and you get ahead of yourself, and the dialog window that comes up doesn't look like what you were expecting, don't worry. Just look and click the other one. So the blue plus or drag, depending on which one you're looking for. Sometimes that can be a little confusing, but if you wanted to reference directly, like anything that we've saved in the past, in terms of on this run, we would say at, and then we'll go to results dot, and then once you type in the dot, you'll see all the things that we have prior set, something that we would have results on, and the only thing right now is favorite color. And so that will actually then respond with whatever color that you selected. In this case, it would be blue. So that's something that can be helpful. The other thing I do want to be clear with is the things in the results variable. So anything that you're clicking, anything that you see save as, like for this favorite color, if it's not saved permanently, it's saved while they're still in the flow, and it's saved while they're still active in the flow. So if for some reason they decide, whoever is using the flow decides to restart the flow, you'll only have one result, and as soon as they restart it, that result will be cleared. And this is one of the reasons why we use groups, is because groups will not be cleared. So if you added someone to a group, you'll keep that until you remove them, either via an action here, or you went into the groups area, you went into contacts and found that person and removed them from the particular group, or added them to a particular group. So there are other ways to do that. And again, I just want to keep things as basic and simple as possible. And so that kind of covers the flow and the contacts. The messages will show up basically anything that comes into a number. If it doesn't fall into the flow, it'll show up in this message hub. And so once you do have a number connected, it will, if it's not a trigger word that the system knows how to interpret, it'll just come here, and you'll see that populate over time. You'll also see how many people are in flows, how many people are how many messages you have in your outbox, and think of that the same as email. How many have been sent successfully, and then you have how many are scaled. Calls, which we're not going to get into right now, and then we have the failed. So if something happened for some reason and things are failed, you can be able to troubleshoot there. I don't think we need to get super deep in that, and it's pretty, it's fairly more straightforward, and I wouldn't worry too much about this page. One that is really important before you get, and I've mentioned that a few times about getting your number connected, there's a concept called channels. And so let's go ahead and click on channels. So to be able to utilize this platform, you need to be able to have a phone number that can be used with our system. So there's a ton of different ways to do this. I'm going to recommend one or two for you, but feel free to explore and set it up however you want to. And I would love to hear how you are setting it up and what you find most useful. And again, you see a whole host of different options here. And there are different caveats on things that are easier versus things that may need approval. But you'll see Android phone, for example. If you have an Android phone that has texting capabilities, you can be able to put an app on that phone and have it to perform all the logic locally through that Android phone. We do this a lot in overseas because it's nice to have a local number. In some of the countries that we work in, it can be challenging to get that number localized, but in the US it's pretty easy to get we call them like a cloud cloud gateways, SMS gateways. But so that is an option. And basically, any text message that goes into that phone, though, to be clear, will be uploaded into the system. And so you wouldn't want to use a personal phone, a personal Android phone to use the system, probably, because all your personal messages will be uploaded into the UMConnect platform. And it'll go back into this message area. I would say the one that we typically advocate for predominantly is Twilio, and you'll see two options here. You'll see Twilio and Twilio messaging service. So just a quick overview of what Twilio is it is a place for typically it's a place to be able to go in and get phone numbers. So you can go and search and rent phone numbers for, I think, about $2 a month or so. It depends on the phone number and what country you're looking at and the type of phone number and the capabilities of it. But typically for what we use, a US based phone number, it's about $2 a month. And you can send and receive text messages with that. And I don't need to go and buy a SIM card. I don't need to have an Android phone. It's built to be able to handle decent amounts of volume of text messages for those numbers. And so that can be really nice. And a lot of companies use this. If you've used Uber or Lyft, they use Twilio or Nexmo to send you a text message saying that your driver is ready and waiting for you. A lot of companies use those platforms. They kind of sit at a backbone, but typically, a lot of them are really designed for developers. And so the great thing about UMConnect is you can basically you can go and rent those numbers, and then connect the account. And so once you create your account, you can add in. You'll get an SID and an account token, and then it'll be able to communicate with Twilio and see what numbers you have, and then you can click on the number that you want to use. So that would be the number that you would connect, that people could then use those trigger words, and everything would work as expected in that case. If you have a really high volume of text messages coming out, at the same time, then the Twilio messaging service might be something that might be helpful. If that is the case, I would say feel free to ask us about it. We're happy to help walk through how that works. But each number can send so many messages so quickly, and if you need to have a multitude of numbers, then that you're sending a message out, you can use Twilio messaging service, and it's not too hard to get set up. It takes a little time to get used to their interface, Twilio's interface, but it's by far our favorite service. And if you're a 501c3, you can sign up at twilio.org, at least at the time of this recording, and you can get a $500 kind of starter money to work. And again, to send messages in the US, I think it's around $0.0075. So basically 3/4 of a cent to send and receive a message. And so if you have a .org account, there'll be a 25% off of that, off of those prices as well. So that's something good to know. I do want to mention you'll also see some social networking channels. This is actually really neat. You can use if you have Facebook pages that have developer if you want to have automated these same automated flows to flow through your Facebook Messenger page, this is the way to do it. Now, Facebook has their own rules that you'll have to figure out, that you'll have to walk through on their developer side, because there's an approval process now for these applications, and you need to, that is going to take some time for that to happen. And again, if you have any questions on that, I can help the best I can. But you could go to Facebook's developer site to figure out kind of what you need to do to get one of these things connected to your Facebook page to be able to run. And the neat thing about it is you can connect multiple channels and run the same flow over Messenger and text message at the same time. And the same for Telegram, which has been really great. WhatsApp can be challenging. There's a lot of rules with all of these. And so anytime you're dealing with these social networking channels, that, all of these companies are trying to prevent spam and prevent their platform from becoming, just not an enjoyable place. Because you can easily see how these kind of automated bots could be kind of more malicious. And so there's a lot of rules to go around this. So results may vary depending on which platform you're wanting to do, but the social networking features is really neat, and is something that I definitely appreciate. So once you get those numbers, you can easily set those up with the SID and the Twilio account token. It's not too challenging, but if you have any questions, we'd be happy to help. And again, if you want to sign up at Twilio.org if you're a 501c3, definitely do that. Twilio.com is their main website. And if you just want to get started really quickly, that's the place to do it. Yeah, I think that'll get us out of the gate. And I'd love to hear any feedback or any questions. Feel free. That does bring us to this little box here. So you actually can just directly message one of the folks on our team, including myself, with any questions, and we'll try to get back with you as fast as possible. Our hours and whatnot varies, so keep that in mind. But we'll try to be around to be able to answer any questions that may be helpful. Yeah, I think that about covers everything up that we wanted to get started with. But after this, we'll do some more opportunities to ask questions, maybe via a webinar or something. And so if that's something interesting to you, feel free to reach out to us, and we'll try to get that straightened out. So thanks a lot, and good luck.